The school was unlike anything Mara had ever seen. Tall glass towers rose from the ground, their walls shimmering like water. Streams of blue liquid ran along walkways, glowing softly. Students of every shape and color moved through the halls, chatting and laughing. But Mara never laughed. She kept her head down and her hands folded in front of her, hoping no one would notice her. It started the first week. Every day at the same time, a group of older students waited near the fountain in the center of the courtyard. Mara tried to avoid them, but it was impossible. The fountain was large and round, its water sparkling in the sunlight. Birds she had never seen before hovered above it, singing strange notes. Mara liked the birds, but she could only watch them for a few seconds. She knew what would happen next. The bullies had names she barely remembered. She never said them aloud because speaking made her feel weaker. They smiled at her with teeth that gleamed like knives, though she knew they would never actually bite her. Still, their eyes were sharp, and Mara felt them like a weight pressing down on her chest. She had learned quickly that showing fear only made them stronger. So she stayed silent. She said nothing. She even stopped blinking too much, trying to appear calm, though inside she trembled. One by one they called her name. Mara, they said, their voices soft but firm. She obeyed, walking slowly to the fountain. Her feet felt heavy, as if the ground itself was trying to stop her. Other students passed by, pretending not to notice. Teachers walked too, eyes turned elsewhere. No one helped. Mara knew she could not rely on anyone. She had to survive alone. The first day the water touched her. Cold and deep, it pressed against her skin. She gasped, but only inside her head. Her body knew the routine. It struggled, it shook, but she forced herself to stay calm. The bullies laughed quietly as if this were a game. Every day it was the same. They said nothing that could be called cruel, but the meaning was clear. Mara understood. They wanted her to fear them. They wanted to see her break. She never did. Her species needed water to live, though not like she had thought as a child. The fountain was cruel because it reminded her of that need. She could breathe out of water, but too long without it made her weak. They knew this. They used it. Mara counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. She imagined herself somewhere else, far from the courtyard. Somewhere where no one laughed at her and no one tried to force her into water. She pictured tall trees with glowing leaves, soft grass beneath her feet. She pictured a sky filled with stars, and herself floating among them, free. Other students whispered as she walked past. Some stared, others hid behind backpacks or alien pets. A few watched with curiosity. Mara tried not to notice. She had learned that looking for allies was dangerous. It made people expect something from her. Expectations were heavy, and she was already carrying too much. She focused on the fountain, on the cold water, on the birds above. She counted her breaths again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second day was worse. The bullies waited longer, making her walk slowly. They circled her, their movements precise and careful. Mara felt like a small animal surrounded by predators. She wanted to run, but the fountain was open, and running would only make it worse. She forced her legs to move steadily, even though her heart pounded. She pretended to be strong. Pretended that the cold water could not touch her spirit. Pretended that she was not afraid. The bullies did not see the truth, but Mara felt it deep inside. Fear was there, but it was quiet. It did not control her. On the third day something changed. Mara noticed a new face among the students. A boy, human, with hair as black as night and eyes wide with wonder. He did not laugh. He did not whisper. He simply stood watching. Mara felt a strange warmth, a small flicker of hope she had not felt before. Maybe, just maybe, he would see her not as a target but as someone worth noticing. She blinked at him quickly and looked away. Humans were unpredictable. She did not trust easily. The bullies noticed the human too. They laughed more loudly this time, showing their sharp teeth. They wanted to scare Mara and warn the new student. But Mara did not flinch. She focused on the water, on the fountain, on counting her breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She imagined herself among the stars again, floating, free. She imagined the humans standing nearby, watching, learning, and maybe understanding. Each day felt longer than the last. The fountain became a place of silence, of waiting. Mara felt her own strength grow, quietly, in the gaps between fear and endurance. She learned the rhythm of the bullies, their small movements, the way their laughter changed when they were impatient. She studied them, memorized them, and kept the small hope alive that one day something would change. The courtyard filled with light as the sun climbed higher. Birds sang above, and water sparkled in the fountain. Mara stepped forward, calm and measured. The bullies circled her. The human watched. And Mara held her head high, silent, ready for the ritual to begin. She did not know what would happen next. She only knew she would not break. Not yet. Not ever. The next morning the courtyard looked the same, but everything had changed for Mara. She walked toward the fountain carefully, counting her breaths as always. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her eyes flicked to the side and there he was, the human boy from yesterday. He stood apart from the crowd, watching, not laughing, not whispering, not pretending to be busy. He looked smaller than most students, but his presence made the bullies pause for a moment. Mara did not know what to think. Humans were strange. They acted differently than anyone else. The bullies noticed him too. Their eyes narrowed and their teeth gleamed in quiet warning. Mara felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he would do something, maybe not. She had learned long ago that hope was dangerous, but it was better than fear alone. She took slow, careful steps toward the fountain. The water sparkled, cold and clear, waiting. She could feel the familiar weight of the bully's eyes on her back, but she also felt something new. The human boy's eyes did not judge her. They were simply watching. After the ritual began, Mara saw that he was not afraid. He stood at a distance, observing every detail. He noticed how the bullies moved, how they circled her, how they laughed quietly to each other. Mara had never seen anyone watch so closely. The human boy tilted his head, taking in everything without saying a word. Other students whispered, but he ignored them. He did not flinch or step back. Mara wondered if humans were made of something different, something stronger than her own species. At first, the bullies tried to scare him. One stepped forward, grinning. "You're new here, human," he said. "Don't get in our way or you'll learn fast." The boy only smiled, a small, calm smile, and shook his head. Mara blinked. Nobody ever shook their head at the bullies. They always obeyed or at least acted scared. But this human seemed different. Mara felt a strange hope rising in her chest. Maybe he was not like the others. Maybe he could change things. Over the next few days the human boy watched carefully. He did not speak to the bullies. He did not interfere, not yet. Instead he studied the fountain, the water, the crowd, and Mara herself. He noticed small things that no one else saw. How the water splashed differently depending on how she moved. How the bullies' laughter changed when she paused. How the teachers pretended to be busy at the edges of the courtyard. Mara was amazed. Humans noticed things. They remembered things. They learned fast. One afternoon he spoke to Mara quietly when no one else could hear. "Why do they do this?" he asked. His voice was calm but not weak. Mara was surprised. Nobody had ever asked her that before. She shook her head, afraid to answer. The words were heavy, but finally she whispered, "They think it is a game. They want to see me afraid." The human boy nodded slowly. "I see," he said. "That is not fair. No one should be treated like that." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. He did not promise revenge. He did not promise protection. He only said he understood. That was enough for now. The bullies tried again the next day. Mara walked toward the fountain, counting her breaths as usual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They circled her, smiling and whispering to each other. The human boy stood nearby, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Mara realized that his presence alone made the bullies uneasy. They had never been observed so closely. They hesitated, checking each other's faces. Mara's hope grew, quiet but strong. The human boy studied the patterns of the bullies. He noticed that they liked to step to the left at the same moment, that one always laughed first, and that another always hesitated when the water splashed higher than expected. Mara had never noticed these details herself. The boy made a small note in his mind, preparing, learning. Mara felt safe in a way she had never felt before. Not because he was strong but because he was paying attention. By the end of the week the human boy had a plan. Mara did not know what it was, but she trusted him. She had seen how he watched, how he thought, and how he stayed calm. He never raised his voice, never threatened, and never ran. Mara realized that humans had patience. They had focus. They could change things without needing to shout or push. She had never seen this before. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of classes, Mara walked slowly toward the fountain. The bullies followed, ready to repeat their cruel routine. But Mara felt a small, quiet courage rising in her chest. The human boy followed too, not behind her, not in front, but beside her. He said nothing, but his presence was a promise. Something was about to change. For the first time, Mara did not feel completely alone. She knew the bullies would try their usual tricks. She knew the water would be cold. But she also knew that this human boy had seen everything. He had noticed her, learned, and prepared. Mara did not know exactly what he would do, but she trusted him. And in that trust, she felt stronger than she had ever been before. The courtyard was quiet except for the fountain and the soft humming of students walking away. Birds hovered above, singing strange notes. Mara's heart beat steadily. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She took a deep breath and stepped into the space where the bullies waited. The human boy stepped beside her. And for the first time, Mara believed that the days of fear might be over. The next day, Mara felt the courtyard differently. The fountain sparkled as usual, the blue water catching the sunlight and reflecting it in soft patterns. Students passed by, laughing and whispering, but Mara barely noticed them. Her attention stayed on the bullies and the human boy beside her. He had been observing quietly for several days now. Mara realized that humans did not rush. They watched, learned, and planned. It was different from anything she had ever seen. The bullies were growing more confident. They had noticed the human boy but assumed he was weak, like many had assumed about Mara. "He's small," one whispered. "He's soft. He won't do anything." They laughed quietly, circling Mara like they always did. Mara's heart raced, but she kept her breathing steady. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The human boy, however, did not flinch or step back. He stood calmly, watching their movements and listening to their words. The bullies began their routine. They approached Mara, their hands ready to push her toward the fountain. Mara felt the familiar cold fear press against her chest, but she focused on her breaths and the human beside her. He said nothing, but she could sense that he was thinking, analyzing, learning. He noticed how they moved together, how they relied on each other, and how one of them always hesitated when the water splashed higher than expected. Mara realized humans could notice small details others ignored. Later that day, the human boy spoke to Mara again. "They think I am weak," he said softly. "They do not understand humans." Mara blinked. She had never heard anyone say that before. The bullies had never thought anyone could be stronger in ways that were not physical. Mara shook her head. "They only care about showing fear," she whispered. "They don't care if someone is smart." The human boy smiled slightly. "Sometimes being smart is stronger than being big." Mara wondered what he meant, but she felt a strange sense of hope. The next few days were the same and different at the same time. The bullies tried their usual tricks, but the human boy was always watching. He observed their timing, their gestures, and the way they communicated silently. Mara noticed that his calmness never wavered, even when they stared at him, warning him to stay away. She realized that humans were unpredictable. They did not follow the usual rules. They did not obey social pressures like others did. Mara had never seen this before. One afternoon, Mara saw the human boy approach the fountain with a small device in his hand. He held it carefully, studying the water and the space around them. Mara did not know what it was, but she trusted him. She had learned to trust his quiet determination. He did not speak to the bullies or try to scare them. He simply prepared, learning how the fountain worked, how the water flowed, and how the bullies reacted when it splashed too high. Mara realized that humans prepared for challenges in ways that others did not. The bullies grew impatient. They whispered and laughed, nudging each other as if daring Mara to cry out. But Mara did not cry. She did not flinch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The human boy watched, noticing every hesitation, every small weakness in their routine. Mara realized that his patience was a weapon. He did not rush. He did not act carelessly. He was waiting for the right moment. Other students began to notice the human boy too. Some were curious, some wary, and some began to question the bullies' actions. Mara could feel the change slowly spreading. The bullies no longer felt completely safe. Their confidence had been built on the assumption that no one would stop them. The human boy had already changed that just by watching and waiting. Mara had never imagined that someone could be so quiet and still, yet so powerful. Later, Mara spoke with him again when the courtyard was nearly empty. "Why do you not stop them now?" she asked. "Why wait?" The human boy looked at her calmly. "Because rushing can make mistakes," he said. "Watching first, understanding first is stronger. Humans plan before they act. We learn before we fight." Mara nodded slowly. She had never thought of strength this way. She had believed that only size or speed mattered. Now she saw that being calm, being careful, and learning could be even stronger. By the end of the week, Mara felt a new kind of courage. She still feared the fountain and the bullies, but the fear no longer controlled her. She watched the human boy as he observed the courtyard, the fountain, and the bullies' every move. She realized that humans were clever, patient, and adaptable. Mara had seen many students try to stop the bullies before, but none had lasted more than a day. This human was different. He did not need to fight loudly or quickly. He only needed to be prepared. The courtyard was quiet except for the fountain's soft bubbling. Mara walked toward it, her steps steady. The bullies followed, unaware that the human boy had already noticed every weakness in their routine. Mara's heart still raced, but her confidence had grown. She knew the human boy was ready. He would act when the moment was right. She only had to trust him and stay calm. For the first time, Mara felt that the daily fear of the fountain might end, not because of force, not because of size, but because of human intelligence. She had learned something new. Humans did not need to be the strongest in appearance. They were strong in ways no one could ignore. And Mara understood that, finally, the silent ritual might not last much longer. The day was bright, and the courtyard shimmered in the sunlight. The fountain sparkled like glass, its water moving in gentle waves. Mara walked toward it as she always did, counting her breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today, however, there was a difference. The human boy stood nearby, calm and still, his eyes focused on the bullies. Mara felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She had watched him prepare all week. Today she thought something might finally change. The bullies noticed him immediately. Their confidence faltered for a brief moment. They had grown used to Mara being alone, small and silent. She never fought back. She never cried. But this human was different. He stood with quiet authority, observing each movement, each gesture, each whisper of the courtyard. Mara felt her heartbeat quicken. The bullies stepped forward, circling her as usual. Their hands hovered near the fountain. The routine had not changed. Yet everything was different. The human boy moved closer, not aggressively but with careful precision. Mara could see that he had studied every detail. He knew how the bullies acted, how the water splashed, and how the courtyard echoed their laughter. He did not shout. He did not try to push them back with force. Instead, he used strategy, positioning himself where he could intervene without unnecessary conflict. Mara marveled at his calmness. Humans were strange, but in this way they were brilliant. The first bully stepped forward, laughing softly. "You think you can stop us?" he sneered. Mara flinched, but the human boy did not move quickly. He only shifted slightly, just enough to block the bully's path. "I don't think," he said quietly. "I know." The words were calm, not loud, but they carried weight. Mara felt a shiver of hope. The bullies paused, confused. They had never been confronted like this before. Their routine relied on silence, on fear, on the assumption that no one would act. The human boy acted next. He reached toward the fountain, not to harm anyone but to guide the water's flow, creating a small barrier between Mara and the bullies. The water splashed slightly, catching the sunlight and reflecting patterns that disoriented the bullies for just a second. That was all he needed. Mara noticed how precise his movements were. He had studied, planned, and executed the moment perfectly. He did not need to fight. He only needed to be clever. The bullies hesitated, unsure what to do. Mara stepped forward, not out of bravery, but because she knew she had an ally. One of the bullies tried to reach her, but the human boy positioned himself strategically, using the fountain and the surrounding space to block any sudden movement. Mara realized that strength was not just about size or speed. It was about thinking, learning, and acting at the right moment. Humans could turn simple things into powerful tools. Other students began to watch, whispering among themselves. Some were curious, others wary. Nobody had seen anyone stop the bullies so calmly, so deliberately. Mara felt their eyes on her and the human boy, but she did not panic. She focused on her breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She realized that fear could be controlled when there was intelligence and strategy beside her. The bullies tried to push again, but the human boy anticipated their movements. He shifted, blocked, and guided, always calm, always precise. Mara noticed that he never touched them roughly. He never raised his voice. His strength was in timing and observation. The bullies grew frustrated. Their confidence faltered as they realized their usual methods were useless. Mara felt a thrill of hope. Perhaps the daily ritual would finally end. After several moments, the bullies stopped completely. They looked around at the other students, realizing that everyone was watching. The courtyard was silent except for the soft bubbling of the fountain. The human boy stepped aside, giving Mara space. She walked slowly to the edge of the water, steadying herself. The bullies had no choice but to step back, humiliated not by physical force but by cleverness and calm authority. Mara felt a strange pride. Today she had survived differently. Today she was not alone. By the end of the day the courtyard felt different. The fountain was still, the sunlight reflecting in soft patterns. Mara walked beside the human boy, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The bullies remained quiet, unsure how to respond to this new challenge. Other students whispered about the human, noting his cleverness and calm control. Mara realized that humans were not always the strongest in size, but their strength was in intelligence, patience, and strategy. For the first time, Mara felt the possibility of a future without fear. She knew the bullies would not be able to continue their routine now that the human boy had acted. She also knew that strength was more than physical power. Humans could teach others that courage, cleverness, and calm could change what seemed impossible. The courtyard felt lighter, as if the sunlight and fountain reflected hope, not fear. Mara smiled slightly, something she had not done in days. She walked forward, counting her breaths, steady and calm. The bullies stared, the human boy watched, and Mara felt a quiet confidence rise inside her. For the first time, the daily ritual seemed breakable. And Mara understood that sometimes strength did not come from size, speed, or violence. It came from intelligence, patience, and courage. Today humans had shown her that. The courtyard was quiet the next morning. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight, and birds hovered above, singing soft, unfamiliar notes. Mara walked toward the fountain as she always did, but today her steps were lighter. She felt different inside. The bullies had been stopped yesterday, not by force, not by loud words, but by the human boy's calm intelligence. Mara realized that everything could change, even the routines that seemed impossible to break. The bullies approached, but they no longer had the confidence they once carried. They whispered among themselves, unsure how to act. Their usual routine had been disrupted. Mara noticed that they looked at the human boy with a strange mix of fear and respect. He did not need to shout. He did not need to strike. His strength came from patience, cleverness, and the quiet courage to act when the time was right. Mara felt hope rising in her chest, stronger than any fear she had felt before. The human boy stood beside her, calm and steady. He did not speak to the bullies. He did not threaten them. He simply observed, ready to guide the situation if needed. Mara realized that he had not needed to fight or push. He had only needed to be clever and prepared. The bullies had misjudged him, assuming he was weak like many thought all humans were. They had been wrong. Mara felt a small smile appear on her face. Humans were strange, unpredictable, and brilliant in ways others did not expect. Other students began to notice the change. Whispers spread through the courtyard. Some were curious, some wary, and some quietly admired the human boy's actions. Mara felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time, she understood that humans did not need to be the strongest in size or speed. They were strong in mind, strong in courage, and strong in cleverness. Mara felt grateful that one had noticed her suffering and had acted in the right way, not with violence but with intelligence. The bullies slowly stepped back, unsure how to respond. Mara's heart still raced, but she kept her breathing steady. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She felt the human boy's presence beside her, calm and patient. She realized that the daily fear of the fountain was finally ending. The bullies could no longer continue their routine because their plan had been outsmarted. Mara felt pride, not just for surviving but for understanding what humans were truly capable of. After the bell rang, signaling the end of classes, Mara and the human boy walked through the courtyard together. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight, peaceful and calm. The bullies watched silently, unsure what to do next. Other students whispered, noting the human boy's cleverness. Mara understood that humans had changed the rules of the academy without striking or shouting. They had used patience, observation, and intelligence to stop cruelty. Teachers approached, finally noticing the situation. They looked at the bullies, then at Mara, then at the human boy. Mara realized that humans had a way of making others see the truth. The teachers could no longer ignore what had been happening. Mara felt a relief she had never experienced before. The fountain, once a place of fear, now seemed like a symbol of change. She had survived the daily ritual, and it had been the human boy's cleverness and patience that had made it possible. Later, Mara spoke quietly to the human boy. "Thank you," she said softly. He smiled, not boastfully but calmly. "You did not need to be afraid anymore," he said. "Sometimes all it takes is seeing what is wrong and acting carefully. Humans do not always fight. We stop problems in smart ways." Mara realized he was right. Humans had a strength others did not always understand. It was not just in muscles or speed. It was in the mind, in courage, in quiet determination. By the end of the day, the courtyard felt different. Mara walked beside the human boy, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The fountain sparkled peacefully, the sunlight reflecting on the water. The bullies remained quiet, unsure what to do next. Other students whispered, watching the human boy. Mara realized that humans had taught a lesson not with violence, but with intelligence and calm action. They had ended cruelty without raising their voices. As the sun began to set, Mara looked at the fountain one last time for the day. She felt a quiet strength inside her. The bullies could no longer harm her, and the academy had begun to change. She understood that humans had a special way of standing against injustice. They did not need to be the strongest physically. Their strength was in observation, cleverness, courage, and the refusal to accept wrongdoing. Mara smiled slightly, a true smile this time, feeling safe and hopeful. The human boy walked beside her, calm and steady. Mara knew that she would never forget what had happened. Humans were known for many things, but most of all for their ability to change impossible situations with patience, intelligence, and courage. Mara had learned that firsthand. The courtyard was quiet, the fountain still, and Mara felt free. For the first time she believed that fear could be overcome, not with strength alone but with cleverness, courage, and the human way. Mara took one last deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She smiled and walked forward, leaving fear behind. The human boy stayed by her side, a quiet protector, a clever ally, and a reminder that humans were stronger than anyone expected. Today the silent ritual had ended, and Mara knew that humans had shown her the true meaning of strength.